I am about to compare failure to poop. So, if you're not about that, fast forward, because that's how we're kicking off this video. When we fear failure, we tend to put unnecessary pressure on ourselves. Or we just altogether end up holding ourselves back. The purpose of this video is to help you have a perspective shift around failure and help you improve your relationship with failure so that you can start moving toward your body and bank goals in a way that actually feels good in your soul. That's going to bring it into the poop part. So again, if you're not down with it, fast forward. I want you to think about a time, or just imagine this scenario in case, I don't know, you've never been constipated, but that's what we're talking about today. So when you're constipated, I'm gonna guess that you visit the toilet often in hopes to poop, to relieve that uncomfortableness. Technically, every single time you go to the toilet when you're constipated and you don't actually poop, that's a failure. Does that failure stop you from going to the toilet again? I'm gonna guess not, right? Like eventually you gotta go back, especially if you want to, relieve that uncomfortableness that you're feeling. You gotta go back, because how are you going to overcome that uncomfortableness if you never go back to sit on the toilet, even though you might fail at shitting, right? So as weird as that sounds, I want you to really think about that. In order to stop feeling constipated, in order to stop feeling uncomfortable and stuck, you gotta go back on the toilet with that risk that you're gonna sit there, nothing's gonna happen, right? And it's like, it's not the end of the world if that does. Maybe it's a little frustrating in the moment, whatever it may be, but you're good for the most part, right? And you don't actually fear going back on the toilet. And ultimately you have to. So I know that sounds really weird. You fail literally every single time you sit on the toilet and you don't shit. But that doesn't stop you from going back, right? And that's it. That's the video. That's a wrap. I'm closing the laptop. That's all you need. No, but next time you think about failure or fearing it, I want you to think about that scenario. That's probably going to stick with you for the rest of your life. So I'm sorry about that, but not really, because it's the truth. The reason we're talking about failure today is because everyone wants to quantum leap. Everyone wants to collapse time around their goals, whether it's body goals, bank goals, business goals, relationship goals, whatever it is, right? And I actually created a TikTok that goes over all the different elements that one needs to quantum leap. So if you're not already following me on TikTok, it's at avgain on there. So give me a follow. Drop in the comment that you're from the YouTube fan, and I'll be sure to follow you back. Those things in that TikTok specifically said that you have to set yourself up for 1,000,000 fails. What I mean by that is you have to be willing to fail. If you really want to collapse time around your goals, you have to take more action in a shorter amount of time. But I want to be very clear, that does not mean doing more equals more and doing less equals less. That's not at all what I mean. I just mean you have to be willing to face more fails, or more of what you perceive as fails, more often. I won't go into that in full. Maybe I'll create a separate video on that later. But I want to stay on topic because this video is about our relationship with failure. So let me ask you, what is your current relationship with failure? Do you fear failure? How do you currently navigate and move through the fear of failure or actually failing? Does that process that you have align with or move you toward your goals. Pause this video to write that down, spend some time reflecting. And if you spend some time reflecting, come back to this video and watch it again just to get a different perspective from this video once you've already had that at the surface. I want you to ask yourself, what actions do you take when you experience a fail? Because some people will fail and give up altogether. That's it. That's a wrap. They throw in the towel. However, some will keep it the fuck going. And if you're watching this, you're probably the latter. You're probably like me. We're going to experience the fail and we're going to keep going. Yet most people fear the fuck out of failure. They'll do everything in their power, both consciously and subconsciously, to avoid failing. Failing. Most of us know, like, the common quote, the common phrase that is everywhere, and that's like usually sparks the beginning of a lot of our spiritual awakening, a lot of our self-development journey, right? Is growth is right outside of the comfort zone. So we know that we still don't step outside of our comfort zone. The fear of failure outweighs it. The fear of failure can express itself in life by you playing small, you holding your potential back, procrastination, that is a big one. Everyone will be searching TikTok or YouTube and Google and all these things for tips and tricks to overcome procrastination, but really they just fear failure. So they need to get to the root of that. Or maybe it shows up as setting way too high of expectations of yourself, and then in turn being way too hard on yourself. All that just creates this unnecessary pressure, which we could go again, back to that constipation example, that we don't need in our life. And again, that pressure is also what blocks our manifestations. It creates more resistance. I hosted a masterclass called Of Course, and we dive into like the energetics, the strategy to move through the two different opportunities. And when I say opportunities, I also mean triggers, because triggers are opportunities, but I also mean like those fuck yes wins. So I ran through these different scenarios with all of my clients on there, and one of them was seeing like a negative $334 in your account. And I had asked them, like, how would they feel if they saw that? And majority of their responses were that they felt like a failure. They would be disappointed as fuck in themselves. And the way a lot of them wrote that they would view themselves as a failure, they wrote it almost like it was an end of the world kind of thing. It actually reminded me of how many times like I've seen the negative account or the negative amount in my bank account during the initial period of my body and bank journey. When I had first quit my job, when I was going all in entrepreneurship. And I mean, at the time, it devastated me when I saw that. I felt like a complete failure too, so I get it. And I actually have this very distinct memory of, checking my phone and just seeing it and like breaking down right then and there. And it did feel like my world is crumbling. I started running down that list of all the things that failure would impact, right? It's like, it's going to impact my business. Yes, it's going to impact my bills and my ability to eat, right? My relationship, my dog, literally everything. And it just felt like my world was crumbling. This failure was causing my world to crumble. Even though in the moment, I was okay. And I do want to say a side note that moment is actually what created the space for me to create my own ritual called the Strong Roots Ritual, so that I could actually process what I was experiencing versus just pushing it off. I'll actually be teaching that in my next masterclass vessel of vitality. So I would love for you to join in that as well. We're creating safe and strong homes within our body for our goals to live in. Despite that failure or experiencing that failure, that year, I still went on to create 6 figures from my business, despite that failure. And despite all my failures, like a flop launch, the weight scale showing the complete opposite of what I wanted, right? Or having an income dip. That was also a really big failure I had to work with. And all these different failures that I could probably pile up in my life, like regardless, I am still doing the damn thing. I am still experiencing wins. I'm still here. Like, I am still here, and failure is ultimately inevitable, and I know I'm going to experience fails in the future, and I know I'm still going to be here. Still going to be here. So that takes me back to the previous question about what actions do you take when you fail? Because yes, failure can really get us in that chokehold, and it could lead us to, playing small, or it lead us down that like downward spiral. But at the end of the day, we keep going. So does failure really have any power? I say no. Will you actually give up? I can bet on that no. And I know damn well for myself it's a no. Will you still be safe? Yes. For the most part, yes. And can we give or even feed failure more power? Absolutely. And we do that by giving in to that fear. But as we heal our relationship with failure, which we're doing right now, we can close those energetic leaks and prove that it has absolutely no power. Here are your action steps for this video. I want you to think of something that you love to do, or that you are doing, or that you would love to do. Right? One of your biggest goals. Think of the biggest failure that could happen, that you could experience within that. Have a journal, write these down. So imagine that scenario, and I want you to ask yourself, are you safe? How is this failure actually a redirection for my greater good? Or how is it a redirection for my community, for my clients, for my audience? I'll give a little example for number 2 here. Maybe, that failure is of greater good for you and your community because that's actually not where you're supposed to be. So I want to use a business example. Let's say you have a flop launch. Maybe that's not where your energy is supposed to be. Maybe once you experience that flop launch, you can then move on to what you're really meant to be at. And that is what's actually going to create an even greater impact amongst your people, your community, and you. Maybe you're going to be so much more happier here. So that's an example of how it's of the highest good. Number 3, what is this failure teaching me? And I actually want you to run down the 5 different sacred strength elements and go one by one. Go with, soul. Start with soul. Was it soul aligned? Does it align with my soul desires or my soul design? Shadow. Was my shadow on board? If not, what is my shadow trying to express or communicate with me through this failure? Going on to Soma. How did this opportunity or whatever I was trying to do that I failed at, how did it feel in my body? Did it feel safe? Did I feel contractions through it? And then from there, how can I make it feel safe? How can I strengthen my capacity to hold more? And then strategy. Was your strategy there? Was your strategy soul aligned? Then we have source. This kind of goes back to the higher consciousness. What can you examine there? What is it trying to teach you within source. Connect with your spirit guides, connect to your intuition, connect to the bigger purpose. And I also want you to remember, information without implementation ain't shit. So actually go do these. The journal questions in the beginning, go do them. Reflect on them. Save these last 3. Reflect on now with that scenario, but you can do this literally anytime you experience a failure. I'm bringing you literally the exact methods that I use with my clients in my Body and Bank program, so take advantage of these. I'm also teaching a lot of this in my Bomb as Fuck bundle, which is a bundle for powerful, simple to apply and implement, but powerful and potent masterclasses. So go make it happen and get back to me, whether that's on Instagram, in the DMs, whether I see you in the Bomb as Fuck bundle, or signed up on the waitlist for the Body and Bank program, whether I see you on TikTok, whether I see you, like I said, in the comments here. Go do it. Get back to me. I want to hype you up. I want to celebrate you for doing the work because it will pay off. And yeah, or I'll see you in the next video.